10 seconds.
Yo, hello to another episode of Black Nerd Fridays, and this is the last episode that your girl, cosplay queen on a budget, will be taking over. Before I pass it on, we're gonna give that at the end. Who am I be passing it on to? But today, what are we gonna be talking about, guys? We're gonna be talking about Transcendence. Now, Transcendence, if you haven't watched, is a movie that came out in 2014 out of Warner Brothers production. And it stars Johnny Depp, Morgan Freeman, which we all know has a very godly figure in everything that he plays in.
Joseph.
And Rebecca Hall. And so this movie, I think, was really, really interesting because it starts off as a way of trying to highlight self-awareness and our obsession with technology. And then it really starts to go off the rails with one of the main characters who really just had this lust for power, right? And we already talked about Deadly Sins last week. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you check that out. But this time we're going to go into a little bit more about greed and this obsession with power. So, you know, before we get into our questions, because we got some good ones today, I think this is more going to be more of a philosophical discussion this time. We want to talk about the beers that we are drinking. So with that being said, I'm going to go on ahead and give it to, because he is actually on time this time. I love this. Like, he is actually on time.
You know, we got 30 seconds to spare now. I didn't know if we were supposed to do any in particular, but I had to make a quick stop because I didn't have much beer at all in the refrigerator. So shout out to my squad, Hella Coastal Brewing Company. I had to go get it one more time. It was the last 4-pack, that Infinite Stout Season. Shout out to Infinite Stout Season. You know about it.
It kind of goes with the theme a little bit. Infinite, just a little bit.
And then again, shout out Federation Brewing Company, where Hella Coastal Brewing Company is actually contract brewing out of. And making that happen. So I had to get the Utopia Planet Phoenicia. That's a Star Trek reference. If you don't know,
nice.
Shout out to Federation Brewing Company. This is their 2019 rye ale winner. Okay, so this thing is good.
Oh, yeah,
and then last but not least,
that.
I already had it before, but I'm gonna definitely throw it up again because I just like it, man. It's just a subtle. If you don't know, obviously I'm going malt characteristics heavy on this episode today. So I got the Oktoberfest. Again,
isn't that a nice way to kind of go into October? I like that.
Making it work. So, shout out Sudz. Appreciate you this week helping us step our game up. So I'm ready for action. Let's get it going. They got the trusty dusty notebook. Let's go.
He got the notes today.
Shout out for leisure for that.
Okay. All right, Mr. Refine. What do you have for us today?
Listen, I'm only doing one today, but I need y'all to pay close attention to this can. This is No Escape from Western New York.
Yes!
Now, look at that can. Look at that can. Who is that?
Yes.
It's a collab between Other Half Mortalis Double IPA, 8.5%. And they just released it today. So I copped it and I'm excited about it. But if you know, you know. If you know the character, you know.
I like that. I mean, that series is always one of my favorites. But you know me, so today I actually got 2. So I love how we kind of went 1, 2, 3. And I'm always on themes when it comes to my beers. So the first one I want to talk about, it's gonna be a little bit hard to see, but it's called Giant Leap.
Nice.
And this is a double New England IPA, and this is coming out of the Ferndale Project. This is a double dry hop with Mosaic, Ella, and Centennial hops. So I'm really excited about this. And this is coming out of my home state, Ferndale, Michigan. So I'm so excited about that. Ferndale. So I'm originally from Detroit, but Ferndale is one of those Metro Detroit little cities that's out there. And this one, because, Mr. Refine was such a sweetheart and sent some beer. Look at this. I picked this one too because of the can art. It has a very AI-ish type of design. But this here is Gemini. It is a sour ale brewed with raspberry, cherry, and lime. I mean, this sounds like this should be like a really nice drink, to be completely honest with you, like a cocktail. What I like about this is that this is coming out of where's this at? Coming out of New York. And I also like this because it's on the low end, it's a 7%. So we're not going too heavy today, because it's been a long week, but we're not even gonna get into that.
Go heavy.
I
Perfect
mean,
time to go
yes
Ezra,
and
when you
no,
got
man.
a busy week.
It's been a busy week. I'm not even gonna lie. But what we're gonna be talking about for the first, our standard question. Okay, so what is the good, bad, and the ugly? And we are going to start off with the good. And who am I going to start off with this? I got to start off with Mr. Refine because he always comes off fine like wine. So what you got? What you got?
I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. I seen it years ago, and it was good to kind of refresh and catch up on it again. And I actually like how they incorporated, 7 years ago, all these elements of social media addiction, relying upon the internet, etc., and we're able to incorporate that whole storyline into this movie. You had some love, you had romance going on, you had a little bit of espionage, etc., going on. So it was a very deep movie, and it was just pretty much a well thought after movie. And it had Morgan Freeman in there, so put some respect on his name. So it was a good movie. I definitely liked it. I liked all of those elements. Dope.
I like it. Look at you. Look at that. All right, D, what you got for us? Oh, I'm sorry, I caught you mid sip.
Cheers, man. Shout out Helicoaster Brewing Company for real. The good. Cheers. All I gotta say is, let me get his name right.
Bill Castor.
Will Castor. That's who it is. That's the number one. I got the kids in the background.
Family life.
Will Castor, hands down, number one. Good to go. He's a winner. You know what I mean? And he's the reason why the movie was good. That's all I gotta say. Shout out Will.
Okay.
First, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. Oh.
All right, J. Cole.
Right. So for me, I love the idea. Anytime there's any type of sci-fi, I'm always enjoying the fact that they start to push this boundaries of what's human. Do you lose touch with your human nature when you start to go a very, AI driven or any type of computer based type of life? And to me, I've always enjoyed those type of movies because it really makes you think. What does it mean to be human? I mean, of course, you can think about it from a biology sense, but really what separates us? Because we have animals that live on this planet, plants, and all kinds of other life forms. So really this idea of what makes us human. Love that aspect of this movie. And I think also, too, the characters that they had, I thought were pretty good. There were a few I felt were a little one-dimensional, but we'll say that for the bad and the ugly. So with that being, I know we're going to keep it short, but D, what's your bad?
Man, my bad. No, I'll say that for my ugly. I think, I'll say that. I'll say that for my ugly. My bad is is just the, and I don't hate to say it. I'm just gonna say it. The love aspect of my boy Will with his wife. Like I appreciate the fact that it was consistent throughout the movie. But to me, like the endings and things of that nature, I was just like, I wanted something different. I just wanted something. I really wanted something to where it was like you were forced to. It was like you had to have that conversation with Will's character and then with Vision's character, who I forgot the actor's name who played Vision. He's in the movie, so shout out to Max. What up with it, Max?
Yeah.
That's his character name. But I really wanted a more deep philosophical question and answer with Will and Max's character towards the end instead of what the outcome was, because I think that would have brought this movie more so into where it would have pushed past the probably went double what they made the movie from. Movie of what the amount of money they spent on it. But I think that ending kind of just was kind of like, oh man, that's what we thought it was going to do, and it did. So that's my bad.
Right. I mean, I gotta agree with you on that. I got some other stuff to add on, but Mr. Refine, what you got?
My bad actually is I didn't appreciate what was going on. Let's say, for example, Dr. Castor, when he found out that he was gonna pass away, his wife, I felt like she had no reaction at all. If that was my situation, if they were to tell me right now Evie's gonna be dying within 5 weeks, yeah, I'm about to flip out. I ain't gonna even lie to you. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
Right.
I'm about to flip out. And I feel like she held herself together a little bit too well. It seemed like there was no emotions at all. But later on, she would be mad about simple things like, oh, why do you know my biochemistry and what sort of emotions I have right now? But when the time that you need to show emotions, you didn't show it. So I thought that was a little corny on that aspect, and they should have done much better. than having her be real refined, as you say, when it came.
Mr. Refined said, "Don't be refined.
Don't be refined. I need emotion. I need emotion." Yeah, let me tell you, I agree with you. I was just say one of my bads is just the lack of emotion for certain pieces, like you were saying with Evelyn Castor, who is his wife, and I think the other time too is I think they really tried to play up a little too much in this idea that you lose a part of your human like a part of yourself as a human once you uploaded your consciousness, because as the movie went on, he really became more and more distant, right? Like it was like he was just kind of getting into this idea like, yes, I am a computer. And I hate when they do that because it's like there's still a part of you that's in there, right? Like you're able to tap into the wider net, but there's still a part of you that's in there. So like, why is it? And it's almost like how when you think about like Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen, how when he got his powers, how he really separated because now he saw time as just a thing. It wasn't where it was limited, right? So I think that they tried to play on that, but I think it played a little too much for me, just a little bit. So, you know, I was like, I don't know about that. But when it comes to my ugly, I think the part of me, and I think this is coming from more of a scientist perspective, it was just the idea that it was just like no one really stopped to think about things logically. It was like, let's just do it, right? It was like, let's just jump right into it. And it's like you have built an entire career on facts, on logic, all these things. And it's like it just went out the damn window. And I was like, well, I'm sorry. Well, no one's stopping to think about the repercussions, the ethics behind any of this stuff. None of it. And I think you were saying like this whole idea of like how she was lacking emotion. Like it was just all these things. I'm like, where they really stripped this idea. Like they set it up beautifully of, you know, human nature, our obsession with things, but then they really stripped out that whole human nature part of it. It was just like, here it is. It became very bare bone to me. So although there were some cool aspects to it, I just felt as though there was a lot of things they could have dived a little bit deeper into, and they set it up beautifully for that in the beginning. But then towards the middle end, I was like, okay, y'all just took this way off the end and really wanted to show off the graphics on this. So it was just, that was my take on it. I was like, I don't know about all that, but you know, we'll see what you guys got to say. So, Mr. Refine, what you got to say about all that?
Man, the ugly was they use scientists, and these scientists, specifically Dr. Castor. Now, his friend, I'm gonna call him Vision. I can't remember his name. I'm just gonna remember him.
Max is the character's name.
His name is Vision to me. That's Vision.
Useless Vision. Useless Vision.
Both of them came up with this idea, you know, to have this AI, have consciousness, etc. So now we know Dr. Castor, his situation, he's dying. He uploads his consciousness into AI and becomes conscious, if you will. But what happens later on with all that is he eventually has drones and dummies that become a part of him. He becomes a god, which is that question that the guy asked earlier in the movie. You know, what are y'all trying to do? Are you trying to become God? And he was like, yeah, isn't that the purpose of like AI? So I didn't like that aspect. I thought that was kind of messed up. And you're talking about scientists and researchers who are using this aspect to control what should be natural. Dying is a natural part of life. And the fact that you took that out and wanted to be immortal or live forever, even consciously, was kind of ugly to me. And then you had the little drones walking around. They were strong and resistant to a lot of stuff and had the nanotech in there. So it took away the humanity aspect and left everything specifically to science. And I didn't like that at all.
Ooh, I love that.
I want to.
So you don't want to leave everything to science, what you're saying, huh?
And spoiler alerts, because Mr. Refine for some reason just likes to rapid fire the spoiler alerts. But I'm gonna come back to that question because I know I want to make sure we get through everything and then we can go back and forth on that because I think Castor accepted his fate, and it was his wife, which is leading into my ugly. Evelyn's character is trash, and that's just a fact in my regards because it was like it's like that monkey's paw. Be careful what you wish for, and she got exactly what she wished for, and did not. The only thing that she was doing, again, it was tying with. She started to show emotion in an aspect of the film where it was like, okay, there goes the emotion, there goes the rabbit hole of only what you want and not looking at what the repercussions could be. And here it is to a level that you just didn't really think about could happen. Not only that, what the level would happen is actually what you yourself wanted to happen with humanity on the positive side, but you didn't have the conversation because you were so quote unquote isolated, and you just really it was like it just wasn't it wasn't really a conversation. It wasn't really building. It was just like you're alive and that's all that matters. And the funny thing to me is like some parts of the movie where the physical aspect of what she wanted, when she finally got it, she was like, oh, it really is what I wanted, because that's all I wanted. I just wanted to see you again in person, and I didn't care about anything else. No, I didn't even care about how you felt, even when Will Castor quoted, "Don't lose yourself in this."
Don't lose yourself. That was something I felt like it was really big in this. Like, don't lose yourself. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So really, I think this idea, like I said, we're going to try something a little bit different, not to do too many spoilers, but this whole idea of, this digital consciousness versus biological consciousness. And, we are nerds. We are nerds, okay? And the reason why I asked this question is because one would think that if you upload your conscious to the computer, shouldn't be too different. The only difference is that you're adding information, right? But it's still you at the core of it. But, how they always do this in movies, anytime you have any type of completely computer-based or a mix, there are some big differences, right? So I'm just kind of curious from your guys' perspective, what did you guys think? And I'm going to start with Mr. Refine on this one.
I actually think it relates to, I'll use an example, Cyborg from DC Comics. Your biological consciousness would be us three. We have free thought, if you want to say that, but we use our own mind. We are conscious of what's going on around us. We can research, we can find things, but we have a limitation to that. We only know as much as we know. When you are digital, let's say, for example, in the case of Dr. Castor, he knows everything now because there is no limitation to his knowledge. He can just touch out with the slightest twitch of a program or something, a syntax, whatever you want to say, and he knows whatever it is he wants to know. So you're now, again, you're godlike. And I would prefer to be human to where I can make decisions, but I don't need to know everything. I need to know what I need to know. But sometimes ignorance is bliss. And to have that much knowledge, I think can be dangerous. And watching the movie, you get that aspect. And that's why certain things happen the way it did, because now this person is a god in their mind, digitally, and they want to control everything. Leave me be as a human. Like I said, life is natural. Death is natural, part of life. We grieve, but I'd rather have that consciousness as opposed to being uploaded on a computer and living forever.
Oh, I love the way that you set that up. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, because that goes back to would you do it. So,
yeah,
D, what you got?
Brian, I mean, he got some key points there. I mean, I mulled over this question a while and thought about it. And I think we want to say that there is a difference because we are not in that aspect or term. But I think with AI and what a lot of people are afraid of, shout out to the Riff organization. Shout out to Riff. They was some straight killers, and I respected that, like, hands down. Like, I was like, if you're gonna be about something, be about something. They was really about something. But with this whole aspect of AI and the difference between a human or biological consciousness versus a technological consciousness, at the end of the day, humanity wants AI, or some of humanity wants AI to have this consciousness. And let's be honest, like, I'm using my cell phone right now as a camera, a camcorder, and this phone is on us 24/7. I mean, more so than any generation has ever had. And the funny thing is that the older generation that complains about how everything is so technologically advanced, they actually utilize this more to do the same exact thing that they were doing before they had technology, i.e. gossip and a whole bunch of other things. So I just laugh at that. I laugh at that aspect. So to me, do I think that there is a difference? I think that when we talk about the certain aspects of emotion, but I think we play too much on, because we are not allowed in the human society to actually channel our emotion in a way to where we could process it and use it in a positive way, whether we go through feelings that may hurt us or things that may make us angry. I think we want to say, well, the thing pretty much I'm getting to is the conversation of what is a soul. And I think with this movie in particular, Transcendence, I think it was like for Will Castor's character, there was no difference because Will Castor's character was focused on what Will Castor was focused on when he had to make the decision. Do you want to go spend the last, spoiler, 4 or 5 weeks of your life in your lab building Pen, your AI system, or do you want to spend that time with your wife? He chose his wife, but his wife didn't choose him.
Ooh. Oh, gee, right. He said, well, baby girl, it didn't get him. So, you know, being a former scientist, I always have thought about just the idea of, you know, the limitless ability of being able to expand your consciousness. And a part of me thinks that when you think about your consciousness as a whole, we barely understand biological consciousness, right? And we are already trying to take a giant leap into something else, right? Pun intended, into something else that we don't even understand in the basics, right? And I've noticed that we as humans do this a lot. As soon as we get a little bit of nugget about something, we want to go ahead and jump to the next best thing. And we are not even talking about, let's fully explore all the capabilities that we have here, right? So for me, you know, when I think about biological consciousness, I think the beauty of it is that because it's so limited and it has a certain timeline to it, or time, you know, it can expire. That to me makes it so much more beautiful, because it's like, you know that the end is near, right? You know what's there. You can't escape it. But at the same time, you are working within this confines of time to build something or to create something that can advance technology or advance humankind, or just to improve your own happiness in life. Like that, to me, I think it's just pretty cool that you can use your mind for that type of stuff. Now, one would say that when you think about technology and uploading one's consciousness to it, cool, you're able to tap into added resources. I mean, the brain itself is able to do all kinds of calculations in split seconds, and we still don't understand how neurons are actually functioning. Like, we have an idea that there's different types of neurons and that they do send electrical signals. But I mean, think about it. Me moving my hands right now is happening in nanoseconds. My brain is telling my hands to move. You know how fast it has to be? And you have computers that we're building to try and mimic that. Let me say that again. We are building computers to mimic something that is already made by nature, right?
Talk about it.
And so for me, it's like, you know, the ability of technology is always going to be limited by what we're able to understand at that point in time, right? So if we allow technology to really go off the reins and learn as we're hoping to do with AI, we might come to a point where computers might find us, you know, unnecessary or non-essential. So to me, it's like, I think having biological consciousness is important because it helps to keep you grounded in now. And it also helps you to understand that things are finite and that there isn't, you know, there's nothing that's going to be infinite. So I think that that's important in that regards, in my honest opinion. So, you know, that's my take on it. But you know, when we think about this whole idea, we talked about the human aspect. We talked about Will Castor a lot. And we all know that he uploaded his consciousness. I talked about, you know, achieving immortality through coding. That's the name of this episode. But like, do you think the human aspect of him was lost? Or do you even think he had it to begin with? You get what I said? Because that's something else too, right? Like, I think that's something else. So, you know, starting off with D, you know, what do you think about that?
You know, Will Castor is my favorite character in the movie, so
that's why I'm starting you off with it.
Yeah, I'm shout out to Will. Will, did he lose his human characteristic? No, I mean he did not. I mean, the thing is, and again, no spoiler alert on the reason why I'm saying that, because you got to go watch Transcendence for yourself and understand why I say no is because of the outcome of the movie. But even in that time, I think what he did lose throughout the movie, especially the aspect of him, what the character Vision's character Max said, is that he's growing what any intellectual being wants to do is they want to grow first, survive, how to bid more, and then once they produce in a way of feeling comfortable of their survival, then it's no longer survival that they're looking for. It's that next level, and that next level is power. The next level is, what else can I do? How far can I take this with the ability that I have? And I think for Will's character, it was just a matter of that influx of no limitation with his mind, because his mind no longer was processing at a human quote unquote speed, or he didn't have to sleep. And that's really, I think, one of the key things that separated, not necessarily saying he wasn't human and his aspect after he was his conscience was transferred. It was like he didn't sleep, so he wasn't tired. It was 24/7, 365 him all day, absorbing. And I think that, if we're going to talk about it, it would be the thing that separated him from his human side, is that our bodies have to eat. No matter how intelligent, no matter how much technology create, like at the end of the day, your body got to rest. And that's just it.
I like that. Very well said.
I like that. I like that a lot. He said he lost it in that regard. Yeah. What about you, Mr. Fine? What you think?
I think, and I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what D said. I agree with him on that aspect, but I also think it parallel, for example, Full Metal Alchemist, like Alphonse. He didn't sleep. He was constantly awake. And to me, Will had that aspect going on, obviously, in his AI form, but at the same time, his human aspect, or his humanity and soul, I think, was kind of still intact. He didn't have emotions at all. I can tell there wasn't any emotions, at least until a certain aspect of the movie. But his human aspect was still there. You can tell by his actions, by the way that he responded to certain things, and I'm going to say stimuli, the way that he thought about helping people specifically. So he was still conscious of that. And I really don't understand how that worked. But he was still conscious of all that. And to me, it was interesting to see, because when they compared it to the thing that they uploaded prior to him being uploaded, that one was, as I'm going to call her, the Riff Queen, blonde haired girl. That one was a tragedy. So this transition was actually pretty good. And to watch that, it made me understand and say, you know what? Yeah, there is some humanity left there. Again, there's no emotions. There's certain things lost in there, but his humanity was still intact. And I think that nothing had left besides his emotional aspect. Everything else was still intact, especially the way that he was showing his care for his wife.
Ooh. So I'm just going to add a little bit more, because you guys covered everything that I was thinking with this. I do think like that the whole idea, like you said, D, the ability to sleep, requirement of sleep, the requirement of trying to add sustenance so that your body can continue to go on, that part is lost, right? So that aspect of, the tiredness and how your mind works and how you may not be as quick to react, or you might be cranky, goes away. I also think the idea that your life ending also was kind of taken away too. Now, he did experience that, because he did indeed die. But I think at the same time, knowing that now he's at a new stage where he forever can live on, I think it's something that I think that was, again, removed, right? But I do think that the idea, like, he knew that at some point in time, although he can continue, his wife cannot. And if she doesn't choose to do the same or go the same route that he has gone, that she too will, her time on this earth will end. And that is something that I think they didn't really build on as much, because to me, that would have been something to see that as he was getting more and more into power, he should have been trying to convince her more, like, hey, me and you can do this together. Like, we can always be together, because we always talk about soulmates. Yes, and how we find each other. And so here's an opportunity for you, because they talk about a little bit with vampires, right? They can bite their lover and they can live on for the rest of their lives, sucking the blood out of everybody else. Or you see how I did that. But at the same time, with this, you don't have to worry about, killing off other humans, but you can stay forever with your loved one. and live out the rest of your days watching humans live, die, expand, explore. And even after that, if computers take over, you would still be a part of that race and be something new, right? But they didn't really expand on that. So I think for me, that aspect of him was still there, but they didn't explore that. And that to me is something, like you said before, Mr. Refined, if you're going to talk about relationships and have this husband and wife dynamic, talk about that, really push that idea that he's going to want to try and convince her to come along and join him on that side. But they didn't really do that. And I felt like that was something that they could have really driven home, but they didn't do it. I was so upset.
I agree.
So,
real quick before we
go ahead.
Just real quick before we jump into
go ahead.
The question is just that I think there's a certain aspect of the movie they did show that he just didn't have that conversation with his wife Evelyn because no sleep, no sleep, no everything that he thought he reacted on, everything. There was no pause. There was nothing for him that stopped his imagination. And I think for us in the physical flesh, we can have all the dreams and imaginations we want, but we actually have to physically go do them. We physically have to insert our being to do these things, and our bodies, no matter how strong the mind is, our bodies are going to say, hey, I'm going to go to sleep, or I need water, or I need food, or you're not going to be happy.
Shut down.
And I'm going to shut down. I'm going to show you. I'm not even going to. And the thing, I think that's back to that whole question about biological consciousness versus AI consciousness. The human body, our species body will literally shut down on you because it can no longer tolerate the actions that you're doing to it. So it's pretty crazy when you think about that. And I really think that with the nanotechnology that was involved, he was attempting to have that conversation, but it wasn't a conversation he was just doing, because again, while you're sleeping, or if I try to talk to you about this theory for the next 2 to 3 days, you're going to be bored after maybe an hour, if that. You know what I mean? He could do this all day, every day. He did it for 2 years. 2 years, no sleep.
No sleep. That's the thing that gets me about it, right? You said no sleep. Could you imagine how much you could actually achieve with no sleep? It's just we didn't have to worry about it. So I threw this question in here because I think, and it's great because you guys have talked about this multiple times, about this relationship between husband and wife, between Will and Evelyn, right? And I just started to think about this a little bit more, because when we think about computers right now, where we have a relationship with them, but it's not in that type of sense, in a romantic sense. It's more of, hey, I need you to do something for me, right? It is keep my food cold, vacuum my space, keep track of my contacts and my calendar events, all these things that are very dependent upon more of we telling it what to do and it responding in a way to tell us to increase our efficiency, or to keep track of things, right? Nothing in a sense of, and I mean, of course, there's some other aspects to it too, to satisfy you, but not in a way that you think about in a romantic sense, right? So I was wondering, can humans have a romantic relationship with AI? And one movie, they talked about it a little bit in this husband and wife dynamic, but there was also another movie called Her, where a young man was having a truly deeply romantic relationship with AI, right? And I think that movie, Her, if you guys haven't checked it, definitely check it out. Really pushes this boundary of, can humans have a relationship with a robot? And so I'm curious, because all of us do have a significant other, and I'm just kind of curious, when you think about our relationships as a whole, and I'm gonna go with you, Mr. Refine, do you think humans can have a relationship with a robot or AI?
I'm going to be very quick and to the point on this, because I got a reason behind this. Is method to my madness. Yes, it can happen, and I'm going to leave it at that. It can happen. I got to answer it later on, but I can't answer now. It'll be explored later on.
Like it.
If you get what I'm saying, we'll talk about it later on.
Okay, I see what you're saying. All right.
I know I'm going.
All right. What you got, D?
I watched that episode in Black Mirror where that AI was giving her the business all damn day. So yes,
Oh, you talking about the robot? I thought you were talking about the two black guys and
no, I ain't talking about that. No,
Black Mirror.
I didn't watch that episode.
That episode was trippy, but go ahead. Sorry, D. But I digress.
No, it's fine. With that, I definitely think it's happening. I think it's not. I mean, the romantic aspect, we have to understand what are we talking about when we talk about romance, because I think a lot of times, especially women, I'm not going to speak for women, but the conversations I've heard or have had is that romance for women is not always a physical thing. There's mental stimulation that can happen. There could be a mental orgasm that could happen that we as men are not. We as men are not privy to, because at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, I'm just keeping it 100. Like, we got a penis and, like, it erupts. Hey. And I mean, there's no multiple orgasms for guys and all that. It's a one shot. I'm just saying, in a sense of where we have to physically.
So we know where D stands.
No, I'm just saying where we physically have to put in that action to get back up and to have that another orgasm again. And any man that sit here and be like, oh man, I'll get up 3 or 4 times. Yeah, when you was 18, 19, 20 years old, that's a fact.
Maybe he's eating healthy. Maybe he's eating his leafy greens.
I'm gonna keep it 100. For me, I remember the time where I literally, it was college. It was second year of college, where I literally went too many rounds to the point where it was like I exhausted myself. Like blanks, nothing. It was but I'm saying, and I did that, but that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm talking about with this romantic aspect. If it's a male, if it's a male, and I'm not saying man or woman, because I'm not talking gender, I'm talking sex. So male and female genitalia. If it's a male, when it's talking about AI and this romantic relationship, I think for males, again, it's mental can happen, but at the end of the day, some physical aspects going to have to happen. I know in that Her movie that you're talking about, from at least the previews, it was no necessarily physical interaction. And
they did a little bit. They tried it in a different route.
That, or at least from these aspects, but you see how it led up to that. You know what I mean? Like, but I think for a woman, again, can't speak for a woman, but I think women, from the conversations that I've heard, is like the sooner or later there will be some sense of physicality, but let's be honest, when it comes to a physical romantic experience for women, there are multiple ways for women to have orgasms where they don't have to necessarily have a physical male part, a male of the species to be there to interact in that way. And I think that if we're talking on the mental side, romantically, hell yeah. If you're talking physically, for males, not as much, even though they try. That's why they got the sex dolls with the silicone and everything like that. But for women, I mean, they got the sky's the limit, from vibrators to anything else. We're talking physical nature. So,
you know what? I'm going to hold mine to the end, because we're going to add that female perspective to this old school thinking. But Mr. Refine.
That was the old school. I said multiple things. Mr. Refine already answered.
Yeah, I can't elaborate on it because I got an answer to it.
Right, he did. He did go short on me. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay, he was a 1 minute on that one. Okay,
Is that pun intended on there?
I forgot. I was like, dang, he did go. So let me add my 2 cents. So I get where you're going with this whole idea that women have this ability to have mental stimulation, that we can be, we need that. We need the emotional aspect. I get that. But at the same time, this whole idea that women, don't put a lot of emphasis on the physical, I think it depends on the woman. Okay. Because some of us women were like, look, if it ain't there, we got a problem. You get what I'm saying?
I'm not.
And I'm just going to speak for some, not for all.
There's multiple.
I get what you're saying.
Multiple levels. There's multiple levels for the female.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but it's an old school thought that women are not so into sex, which to me, it's like, that's a load of baloney if we're going to be true about this. Okay? And I think the other thing too about it, like when you think about romance in itself, I think that it hits it with the way that social media has really pushed for what true romance is, right? We all are basing it off of, well, I saw so and so on Instagram and he did this amazing date and
Talk about it.
he
Talk
did
about
this
it.
and that, or she, you know, wore this, like, you know, she did all this for her guy and she dresses up and it's like, listen.
She in that cosplay.
I mean, I am into cosplay,
Mm-hmm,
but I think
mm-hmm,
it's in the sense of you have to understand what works for your relationship. When you think, and a lot of people can't even answer the question of what really makes them happy, what really keeps them
yes,
satisfied.
Drop,
yes.
So when you
drop
think
them gems,
about,
suds.
you get what I'm saying? So when you think about a romantic relationship, I do think that if a person knows exactly what they're looking for, you probably could get it from a computer. Now the question becomes, you know, especially if you have it in like a robot physical form, right? But the question becomes, you know, if it has the ability to learn, that I think would make it much more interesting because it won't be the same run-of-the-mill program that's going to be running to say, I know exactly what you want to hear, so let me rub your feet, let me do that. Like, you know, it's not going to be saying those type of things, right? Like it's going to learn. It's going to,
on that one.
you know, it's going to be giving you different things. So I think for some people in the world, regardless if you're male or female, I think it could. I think it could fill that void. And I think for a lot of people who find dating extremely difficult or who have a hard time with interacting with other humans, maybe it's an outlet for them. I don't know. Or for people who are like, you know what, I'm tired of humans. I want to try something different. There's always going to be some people out there for it. I do think that the type of, you know, spontaneity that comes with being human and the faults that come with it, you really won't have that with robots unless you try to work in some type of like small percentage of it fucking up, literally. But you know, could you program a robot to maybe cheat to make it seem more realistic? I don't know, you know, but I mean, like, there's these other aspects of human nature that I think can get lost when you think about it when you're going with AI. But if you're thinking about having something that is consistent, that is there for you when you need it, sure, you could probably program something like that. I think you could. But I think it also takes away this idea that you know that at some point in time, you're going to get old. This robot could continue going on, banging some other person, you know, making somebody else feel like they're the number one thing in the world once you croak, you know, and pass on. But I think it takes away that aspect of me growing old with someone. Like, it can pretend to do that with you. It can pretend when we get to that stage. But this idea of growing old with someone and knowing that, hey, our time on this planet is ending, you know, so let me cherish every moment I have with you, whether we have kids or if we don't have kids, if we travel, you know, do whatever the hell we want to do. Like, that piece of it, I think, gets lost when you think about having a romantic relationship with a robot. So, you know, that's my big takeaway when it comes to that aspect of it. And before I pass it on, does anybody want to ask? I know D, you did
Yeah, he
raise a
raising
little
his
bit.
hand up over
I
there.
thought he did a little bit. So
I'm trying to be respectful and not cut.
Go ahead.
You
You
off,
can cut
you know
in. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think also one of the things too with the romantic aspect, which a lot of the movies like Her and a lot of certain amount of men in Japan marrying 2D women and women marrying 2D men, males, excuse me, in that context. I think too that AI, if it learns, as you said, Suds, I think a lot of times the human species is really not ready for a perfect mate, and and because they don't know, they've never seen what a perfect mate is, and with us as a species, there's our imperfection is perfect, but we always focus on making someone perfect, but you got to understand you have two different thought process when you're in a relationship. So the romantic side, this AI could take it to a level that meets it so to a T. But at the end of the day, for me, I think that, again, you're missing the physical aspect of it unless you do, you know, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but unless you do some things, and, you know, with nanotechnology, and create some stuff, you know, hint, hint, or are you really understand that aspect that you're going to have to mentally view this AI as you physically please yourself. I think that is something outside of just the physical aspect for a perfect mate, which a lot of people always have, society has hyped us up to believe, like, you got to find this is going to be the perfect person for you, but that perfect person is going to have the flaws, as many flaws, or if not more, that you have. And the flaws are what you're going to have to accept, because a lot of times we think about changing people. And I think that's another big problem that we as a species have, because no one's going to change for you unless they want to. You can't change anybody. You can provide them a different perspective, but you can't change anybody. They are who they are, and they change if they change if they choose to. And I think AI, a romantic AI, would force a lot of us to look in the mirror and be like, damn, I said I wanted this, and now I got to change to step up to that level.
Start doing that Michael Jackson "Man in the Mirror" type of song there. I'm talking to the man in the mirror. You're like, oh man, I screwed up. So this is when we start to shift gears a little bit and go from romance to technology as a whole. So I really wanted to ask this question because I think when you think about technology, it has human influence written all over it. But if you take out that aspect and just think about technology as is, do you think technology is inherently good, neutral, or evil, as we used to do for Goldfinger? Okay, so I'm going to start with Mr. Refine and tell me, what do you think?
I actually think that, as you said, it depends upon the program and the person who actually put the program in there, did all the coding, etc. What were they looking for when they did that? What sort of person is the person that's doing that? And that will give you the answer, because I might look at something specifically and say, nah, it's not a problem at all with what's going on. But that same person who programmed it might be like, another person might be like, nah, I don't like that. I think it's bad, or this is affecting me in a negative way. And then you might have another person who says they like it. So it depends on the person who's viewing it. And again, it depends on the person who's programming it. And technology itself has no emotions or characteristics, good, evil, bad. That doesn't happen. But the person who's programming it, yeah, they do. So that will determine what that technology will do. A case in point, what's the movie iRobot? Where eventually the robots took over, but the one who was conscious had thoughts from his creator. Yes, his creator was a very good human being, and anybody else that might have programmed that robot might not have had that same thought process or care. So that answers the question. It depends on who does it.
I love that answer. And D, what do you
cheers to that, Mr. Refine. Cheers to that. What I have to say is, again, technology is a reflection of us, and technology is neutral. I think a lot of times people look at technology, and I get it a lot of times working at my job, where a lot of older people are like, well, why can't this software do that? Well, nobody programmed it to do that specifically, because it's not at the point to where it can learn on its own. But it's not even learning on its own. It's learning by the things that we do in the software that lets it learn what it is that you want it to do. And so technology is neutral. And back to Mr. Refine's point, it's who's doing it. And I think a lot of times we get caught up because, again, society has made us what's good and evil. But like Dr. Greg Carr likes to quote, shout out Dr. Greg Carr.
Hey, there you go.
That as you look off into history, a lot of times there is no delineation of what is good and what is evil, because someone who you admire and you love what they are doing or what they did could have done things that to you could be horrendous, and vice versa. So that's my take on it.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I do agree with you guys that depending on who is programming can influence the end game of that technology, right? I do think that technology is inherently neutral, inherently in the beginning, because it really is just a mesh of things coming together, sending an electrical current, and then trying to figure its way in the world, whether it's through influences from us or just on its own. And I think the biggest thing that really shows which way it can go is when they talked about that one, there was a Twitter bot that they had put together, and I want to say it was IBM or some other company that had a Twitter bot that was out there who started off very happy, very kind of neutral, right? And over time, as more and more people interacted with it, it was learning through its responses You're one with this. It was learning through its responses how to react.
No.
What exactly? It became very racist. It became right. It became very racist. It became very angry. And so you have to say to yourself, technology is only going to be that way because of how it's responding to us. And this is why I think that because we have created it, right, that we might end up being taken out by our own creation. I really do think that. And this is why I think that whole idea of the Terminator I thought was so interesting because, even the same thing they did with iRobot, which you brought up earlier, Mr. Refine, it's just this idea that we have created something that takes a step back subjectively and says, or it's not subjectively, objectively and says, you were fucking up. Like you were seriously fucking this up. And we need to eliminate you because you are not, you're not respectful. Right? You're not thinking of your fellow man. You're not thinking of the planet as it is. So we need to eliminate, or we need to at least control. Right? And so that to me, I think is the biggest thing is that because of our impact on the world, our impact on technology, it will push it towards being what we would call evil because it's trying to take out a threat. I'm like, but we do the same thing to other humans. We're constantly starting wars over someone we consider to be evil or when you think the more evil between the two. I mean, think about the last election that we had. Well, we're picking between the lesser of two evils.
Yes.
And when you think about that type of language that we're using, right? This type of, like in another good movie that talked about this, it was not with computers, but with aliens, was Arrival. And how do we interact with another species that's biologic, right? That's and the biggest thing is that the way that the Americans, because we like to portray ourselves in such a positive light, viewed and interacted with these aliens was like, let's try language. Let's not do math. Let's do language. And like the Chinese, because they wanted to portray them in such a negative light, were portrayed as, let's do this as war. Let's do this in a game. And the objective of the game is to win. So of course things are going to come off a little bit evil or a little bit more aggressive. And so I think the thing is that we as humans like to put ourselves in this top position, but at the same time, the way that we get into that top position was not through building each other up. It was, let me screw you over because you have the resources that I want. We've seen the same thing happen with Haiti. We've seen the same thing happen with the Middle East. We have seen the same thing happen with Africa. So over time, we have gone through and pushed others down as a means to elevate ourselves.
There's no.
But you get what I'm saying. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying as humans. I'm saying humans, right? I'm saying humans as a species, we have screwed each other over when we think about that, right? And they will say, well, animals do the same thing. I'm like, no, but they have a hierarchy to things, but at the same time, everyone in the pack gets fed. Everybody in the unless there is one who has tried to be sneaky, and if that's the case, they usually exile them. They're like, hey, you're exiled, you're out, you can't be here anymore. But again, they still think about everybody as a whole. We don't think about everybody as a whole. How many homeless people do we have? So if we are not taking care, right? So if we're not taking care of each other, how can we expect technology that we created to think in a neutral or good way when we ourselves are not inherently good or good or neutral to begin with? So that to me is, now of course, if you bring religion into it, there's a completely different subject, which I think we would have to say that for another conversation. But I do think that in turn will also bring up a lot of different things with that. So I do think technology inherently is neutral, to get back to the question, but at the same time, our influences really will push it into the extremes that we have that I put out there. So I like that. I love that.
That was beautiful, sir.
Yeah.
I love that. So, since we are Black Nerd Fridays, I had to put this question in here. I had to, because I want to highlight positives and the negatives when we think about technology. Now, we talked last time, a couple weeks ago in another episode, about how when we are projected into the future, we are not there. When we see stories, we're rarely there. Either we're not there, or we're very minimalized, right? Like we're marginalized in a future, which is like, I don't understand when we have led to a lot of technologies that have come up, but I digress. So I think in this regard, we think about this idea of being able to upload consciousness, right? This ability to tap into wider resources. I think that is pretty cool. But when we think about in today's time, how has technology actually affected minorities? And we have a lot of examples that are good and bad, but I wanted to talk about that with you guys because I think that as a whole, there are a lot of things that we could talk about. And so, Mr. Refine, I want you to start off because you said you had some positives you wanted to highlight.
I actually got a bit of both. Positive aspect will be it has created jobs for us. A lot of us are able to use our mind and our thought process outside of what we are considered as a monolith. And that's definitely always a good thing. The negative aspect would be now everything is at the touch of a finger. That means that you can be exposed on whatever it is. For example, let's say world star hip hop. How many videos have we watched over the years where somebody getting beat up, getting ass whooped, and it's viral now? So now this person's walking around just like on the last episode or 2 episodes ago, Tokyo Ghost, where this person has this image of themselves on the internet where they got their ass whooped. Now, back in the day, you could take an L and just keep on moving. That's nothing. Your pride might be hurt a little bit, but you'll live. You'll live, as he said on Friday, to fight another day. Nowadays, that's being droned into your head. Now, in the same time, you have us, we'll be on TikTok. Now, we got TikTok popping. Let's just keep it above. We as Black got TikTok popping. Dances, everything that we do, that is us. We are inherently the culture. We are inherently influential. Everybody wants to be us. Black is the new it. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, you'll have maybe 2 or 3 girls or guys, whatever, do a dance. Now, that same dance would get emulated by a white girl or white boy. And all of a sudden, it's the hottest shit ever. Now, we did the same thing, but we don't get that good look. We don't get the 20 million views. We don't get the sponsorships that come with that stuff that these people do. And we don't control or program these algorithms. And the person who's doing that does also not look like us. So in that aspect, the technology is not made for us, it's made for them. We don't reap these benefits. So you got negatives and positives, but I'm going more negative than anything based upon the fact that we getting affected negatively. Now, the positive would be, look at what's happening today with the Haitians.
Ooh.
We're putting it on Front Street. We seeing everything. All you motherfuckers are doing everything that people are doing. We see it all now. So you can hide. That is out on Front Street, and it's not nothing that you can say, oh, that wasn't me. No, I got you. I got you on camera. You can't say nothing.
Saw you.
So that's the positive. But at the same time, we got a whole lot of negatives that come with it. And as I said, we're not the person who controls these programs and makes these algorithms. So
I love that.
I got says let me get in here. Yes.
No, go ahead. I was waiting for you to come back.
Fine. Thank you for saying that because that's a fact. Dr. Claude Anderson and his book Powernomics, he mentioned this and he wrote that in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. He wrote that.
My graduation year from high school. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. Go ahead.
2005 is when he wrote the book Powernomics, and what he specified in 2005 was that technology was not going to be a positive thing for Black people, specifically to the fact that Mr. Refine just noted, is that because we don't control it. I mean, let's be honest. How many people, even on this live or when you're watching this on the replay, how many of the people who are Black, brown, or not Black and brown know of Fan Base, which Isaac Hayes III created? And I got on there. The problem with Fan Base, in my perspective, is it's literally exact, in my opinion, from what I've seen from the first couple of times on there, is exact replica of Instagram. So you have to convince Black people who are typically known to consume or taught to consume and not own to go to a Black-owned Instagram application where you actually could make revenue more so than Instagram or TikTok. But you have to fully convert over to that. And I think what technology has done for Black people around the world, not just in the United States, is what it has always done with every technological advance that was sometimes, a lot of times, created by Black folks, but because we don't get the patent because we're not considered a human, so we can't file a patent. Or once we do that, again, either you sell it or you let other people use it, and therefore the people who are all the Black engineers and Black biotech and Black psychologists and sociologists, all of them who go work for these tech companies, you're going to work for a white conglomerate, and at the end of the day, you're not in ownership. So to me, to Mr. Refine's point, it is a negative aspect. Now, the positive is that it quote unquote connects us more when it comes with Black folks. But the problem is again, we don't own anything in that regard. And the few Black people that do, that get into those rooms, they want to be one, if not few of the Black people in that room. They want to sit at their table and utilize that technology. But at the end of the day, to Dr. Claude Anderson's point in Powernomics, it's not benefiting us at all, because technology, we didn't create the companies that utilize the social media that we utilize now, even like a platform like this as well that we're on right now. So it's definitely negative. And what all these movies show, and then I'm ending with this, what all these movies show is that, again, you as Black people, we just see you as consumers. You're not even in the building. You're not even in the city that the companies are. And that's a fact. And that's a fact in California and Silicon Valley.
Yes.
To right now, you go to Palo Alto, not East Palo Alto, where mostly Black people are from, and it's gentrified now, so there's a lot of white people there. You go to Palo Alto, you're in certain parts of San Francisco, or a lot of parts of San Francisco. You don't see, where it comes to where the tech companies are, or you go to San Mateo or Foster City, ain't no Black people over there. Not at all. So the movies just show exactly what's going on right now, and telling you minorities, especially you Blacks, we don't need you. We just need you to be consumers. So you keep using our stuff, making yourself popular, or making your dances,
making our platform
everything popular. Make our platform popular. Make us get billions of dollars. Let us cash out. And then you keep doing and using, then we'll make something else that's not Black owned, and you get on that because you're the first. Because we like, as Black folks, we like to be the first. I had them J's first. I had that shirt first.
So
and there you go.
So I'm gonna add to this. I think technology, because we now have the ability to upload a lot of information in history, that we are now finally able to give credit where it should have been given. That's the one thing I will say that has helped minorities in that regard, because we are now able to have facts played out and displayed in such a way that it is very hard for people to ignore the fact that contributions that minorities, and very especially for Blacks, have played in technology, in science, in medicine, and all kinds of areas you could possibly think of. One in particular would be Henrietta Lacks. And if you haven't read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, please do. That book will really illustrate the power that a Black woman had on revolutionizing science when it comes to understanding how cells and what cell biology really means. This woman went in because she was having problems, and because they took some samples of her cells that were cancerous, they were able to create a cell line that allowed them to expand the knowledge of so many different cellular pathways when it came to cancer and any other type of cell biology pathway. And I myself actually had the chance to be able to look through a microscope and see those cells, to see a Black woman continuing to live to be immortal in such a way that she has been viewed in through the eyes of so many people, millions, billions of people. That to me was something, when I read her story as an early scientist who was going through grad school, and I got the chance to actually see her cells. And I tell you that when I learned of her story and I actually got the chance to work with those cells, that really hit me. I had to take a step back from the microscope and really pause for a second, because I'm like, this woman's cells is helping my career. She's helping me further my education. It was against her will. Let me say that. It was against her will and against her knowledge that her cells have been used in such a way. But she has helped so many of us kind of expand and move in this direction. So I think that the ability of technology, having it where we are forced to face as a society, the impact, the importance of Black people, the importance of Asians, of Hispanics, of Native Americans that have had on these different types of things that we do in our day-to-day lives, you can't shy away from it now. You can't. And I think that in itself,
ignore if you want to.
It's very hard to ignore.
Which whiteness has allowed so many of us to do. Choose to.
And so I think, right. And when you look at history books, the way that it's written, it erases a lot of the pain, the trauma, but also the positives that we have contributed to this history. So to me, I think that there's a positive that comes with that. I think the other thing too, like you said, connectivity, it has helped in that regard. It helped us to trace back ourselves, because a lot of us, when we think about us being in America, we are not able to really trace ourselves back in our history. We are able to go back so far, but because of records, we are now able to trace back even further, past our grandparents, past our great-grandparents. We're able to say with greater detail now where we came from, at least starting in America. Now, past that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but greater forms of knowledge and the curation of data, I think, will help with that. But I do think that there are a lot of negatives that come with it. One of them being this facial recognition type of technology. That alone has had such a racial discrimination and racial disparity to it that when you think about, they're like, oh, well, we're going to use AI to help us identify. Okay. But we do realize that there is a higher number of mugshots that come from minorities. When you think about the jail population, we know that more minorities, in particular blacks, are in the jail system. We know that there's a big business that comes with that as well.
Facts.
So when you think about that, of course, you're going to have it where they're going to pull up more of these black individuals when it comes up to that, right? We already see people lying when they do police reports about it was a black man who did this. It was a group of black men that did that, when we know damn well that it wasn't. Now, I'm not erasing the fact that there are crimes that are committed by black people, but at the same time, we do know that we are used a lot as a scapegoat for these types of crimes. So when you think about this AI, like you said, the two of you have said, the programmer itself who's creating this inherent bias that is built into the system when it comes to loans, because now they're trying to have AI figure that out. And we know the different types of factors that they're playing into it: credit score, your job history. Come on now. When we talk about AI that will scan resumes based off of names, we know that people are getting screwed. Okay. You have to use a shorter form of your name to make it past certain things. Like, we know that this is happening. So it's not just with facial recognition when it comes to crime. It's trying to get a job. It's trying to get a loan. Okay. It's all of these things that play into it. So there were a lot of negatives that are kind of already built into the system against minorities. And it's bad enough that we got to deal with this from a human aspect. And now you're saying when we go more technology dependent, that we have to also worry about machines discriminating against us. Like, come on, are we ever going to be able to get out of this? And the only way you can do that is by having more and more blacks that get into science, who get into engineering, who get into programming. And there are more of us who are getting into it, that are hoping to change that tide, who are calling that stuff out. I mean, Google had a huge uproar that came out of their AI department. That came out of that. And there was a few others that have spoken out about AI when it comes to other companies that have said that, look, there are some challenges when it comes to, AI as a whole, and they're calling out these racial disparities. So I think that there's a lot of voices that are being heard now because of technology, because of social media. But at the same time, there's so much work that needs to be done. There's so much work that needs to be done when it comes to that. And D, I'm gonna give it back to you. I see you had your hand raised. He's like, hold on, let me get one more thing in there.
We definitely passed at the hour, but back to what Dr. Claude Anderson said in his book Powernomics. All that Google being called out, Facebook, blah blah blah, all that shit don't mean nothing. You can have 100 black people in the room running all. Again, if you don't do a shout out to Roland Martin Unfiltered, and if you black or brown or a person that's really saying the way black people are treated in the world is wrong, you ain't watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, you're doing yourself a disservice. Or watching In Class with Carr, you're doing yourself a disservice. But all of that does not matter. No matter how much call outs you get, no matter George Floyd, when COVID was happening and everybody had to watch that 8 minutes and 46 seconds over and over and over again, if we don't own it, and we as black people of color, because I hate saying minorities, because people of color are the majority in the world.
They are.
Period.
They are.
But all I got to say to that is, if we don't support ourselves and get off of just what's popular or fearful of what what if I don't get any people? And you can be on all the platforms, but if your main focus is on that platform of that's ran by somebody of color, then no matter how much outrage you happen is gonna change, because they can give us all the money they want to give us, because again, that to them that's either a write-off or another drop in the bucket of the money that they make. So
some concessions.
That's all I gotta say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that being said, because we've talked about, a little bit about this, but do you think AI would eliminate humans for the greater good? I'm kind of curious, because when we think about us as humans, we are not that great to each other. So
hey man, you have this refined first. Why you know?
No, I'm gonna give it to him. I'm gonna let him get his 2 cents in. Go ahead.
Do I think that AI would eliminate humans for greater good? I'm gonna go back to what I said before. Depends on who programmed it. Number two, the way we are moving right now, we are so dependent upon technology. I mean, even the smallest finite things, even myself, I used to remember phone numbers like the back of my hand. Now I need Now I need my phone. I'm like, dang, what's that address? Hold on, what's my grandmother's phone number? What's this? What's that? Yes, I think that in the long run, it will eliminate what our necessary actions and things we do in life. Do I think it'll get rid of humans? No, not unless there's a plot to be like what is it, Skynet from Terminator? Not unless it's something like that where these AIs get conscious and do that. But no, I don't think that'll happen. But there is aspects of human life and humanity that are being gone. We are becoming useless and mindless. We don't want to use our brains critically. I'll even use my kids, for example. They're extremely intelligent, all of them, but they rely so much upon, I need my phone. I'm bored. What can I do right now? What am I supposed to do? Do exactly what I did when I was a kid. Make up a game. Use this to do it. They don't want to, and we've become lax with that in our society. So, yeah, AI is definitely taking out humanity, but not in the way that we think. It's more of our things that we had to rely upon, our brain power, our things like my grandfather, God rest his soul. He could tell me every highway from the east to the west coast, from down south here, which routes he had to take from the back of his hand. Now look at me, here I am, 2 generations later. Let me pull up maps because I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to
and then my navigation.
Yeah, so
that GPS stuff down the street around the corner, because
it's definitely taking it over, and we just gotta wait and see what happens. Gotta wait.
I love that. D, what you got?
Man, I'm my bad. I knocked my computer off. I'm agreeing.
He's like, wait.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with Mr. Refine. Hands down, is just the way that we're just becoming mindless. That's what AI would do for us, because they would do everything, everything to where we wouldn't have to use our capacity to think more. And I don't think that they would get rid of us, but I think that we would become so reliant on them as we are so reliant on technology right now, that it's almost like we're dead. So that's my answer.
Ooh, I like that. I think honestly, if it's not AI that takes us out, it's aliens. And the reason why I say that, because when you look at us as a whole, not only did we screw up this planet, you have scientists say at this point, y'all, we have no time left to try and autocorrect what the fuck we have done.
unless it's a drastic change in Biden's infrastructure plan.
Listen, he already showed he's going the same route. No, he's already showing he's going the same route
for coal
as previous.
That ain't
he has already shown he's going the same damn route like every other president we have had. And the only way you're going to make any changes if you completely change Congress. I mean, you got individuals. Here's the thing that gets me. You have individuals who are in their 70s and 80s that are in these powerful positions. But when you think about it, here's the crazy thing about it. In society, what do we always say when we see an old person behind the wheel? Why the fuck are they still driving?
Thank you.
But we have them in office making decisions. We have them in Supreme Court positions,
the rest
making
of
decisions about Roe versus Wade, about voter rights, You get what I'm saying? You were expecting an old person who has living in this time now, but grew up and was influenced by a previous time to influence laws that we need to have that need to be evolved for what we're moving into. So as far as I'm concerned, it's like if we don't kill ourselves off before robots do, aliens are surely going to look at us like, if you saw Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, if none of you have watched it, another good movie to watch, they wanted to wipe out Earth to make way for a space highway. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, yes, please do, because we are stupid. We are absolutely stupid. We have pushed. No, but you know what? Screw it, because it's like we have pushed out how many species to extinction because of what we've done.
But that's but here's the thing. Stop saying we.
But you know why I'm saying we is because others. Because here's the thing. The reason why I say we is because others who may not be in those power positions are continuing to let the shit happen. Why? Because you got a taste of money. Why? Because you are in a power position. You've seen it with our own kind. You get into a power position. Look at some of the celebrities that we have. Have any of them spoken out about Haiti? Have any of them spoken out about Haiti?
Dr. Sudz dropping facts right now.
As far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to say this. Have any of them said anything?
But hold on. No, they have not. But I'll say this, like we always talk about, we don't need entertainers to be our voices. They are not to speak for us.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. But what I'm getting at is this: it's the fact that we as a species are not doing that. You get what I'm saying? So Absolutely. For me, it's like when you think about it as a whole, you know, maybe we do need to have a Thanos snap and have half of us wiped out. But maybe that will wake us up. But that's what I'm saying.
The thing is, why I keep going to the point about the we aspect, there is no we. I mean, colonization took away the aspect of we. The Chinese and the Africans and every civilization way before Britain was trading with no problem. But then France, Spain, the Dutch, the Portuguese, all of them, as soon as they got their turn, then it was enslavement. And like if you think about these corporations now, and I know we way over hours, so I want to definitely make sure we get to the questions. But when we say that us as humanity are not doing anything, that requires us to sacrifice our lives. And if you let's be honest, no matter how many guns if you agree with the Second Amendment in the United States or around the world, as far as you should have guns or not, no matter how many guns you get, when you have a organized group that has quote unquote money, that the thing that we utilize for our bartering system, these dollars or currency, when they have a blank check to buy the most advanced of technologies, like that's just not a no-win. And like what you're talking about for that change to happen is that we have to stop. Everybody would literally have to stop working around the world. We're not just talking about in the United States. Around the world, people have to be like, we're not working.
But here's my thing.
Work for this company until those changes happen. But in the meantime, while they're doing that, just like in the civil rights movement here, and shout out to Roland Martin Unfiltered again, because when he was talking to the lawyer whose name I apologize for forgetting, the lawyer that was a lawyer for Martin Luther King and a lot of the people, Rosa Parks and so forth, what he was saying on the Black Star Network, which I need to go download that app, Black Star Network.
Yes.
iOS, Android, all that. What he was saying was that you have to have a plan. He said when the bus boycott was about to start, the question that the lawyer and another lawyer had a conversation about was, how do we make sure that these people get to where they need to get to so that they can feed themselves for a long period of time?
You know what? I'm gonna cut in. Yeah. I'm gonna have to cut in because I'm gonna
take right there. Get that Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Let me put it on
Miss Black.
Oh yeah.
Refined.
Hold on. Let me put it on. Let me put it on.
That Black Star Network going on, but you definitely got the Roland Martin Unfiltered, man. We really
let me speak to what you're talking about. I totally agree with you when you say don't say we, because when you think about historically, we are at a disadvantage. But here's my thing: we have black dollars that are powering a lot of industries.
Yeah.
Okay. If you really wanted to make a dent, Black people could stand together and say, let's not spend our money on things. They did it for when they did the bus boycott. They did it.
That is a verb.
He just said it. We are not willing to sacrifice anything to get something done. Okay, there we go. Period.
Yeah.
We gotta sacrifice something.
You're talking about just the people, like the people on live now. And again, I hope when people watch this replay that they really have the in-depth conversation. You're asking everybody on this live, ourselves included, to say, you know what, we're going to stop spending our money with this group. But reality is that none of us are doing any fact checks for any any conglomerate, because at the end of the day, back to my point that I made earlier in the conversation, what Dr. Greg Carr said, when you look at any corporation, there is not one corporation, not one group on the face of this planet that has not done something that pushes them into this philosophical ideological idea of good and evil. There's no group on the planet that has not bordered within those lines, whether to the extreme of either side. And Black people as a whole, like, again, you're talking about centuries and centuries of manipulation and oppression to where we hate ourselves. And then you tie in the idea of whiteness. Like when I did my episode on Beer Talk Now on Wednesday about Haiti forever, because Haiti is the reason why all of the Black people are free in the world, as far as not in chattel slavery in the sense that we know it of, and enslavement. At the end of the day, one of the guys got on, shout out to Tap. He got on and he said, there are people that are Mexican like me who vote for the white supremacists and agree with them on what is happening at the border of Mexico with the Haitians.
Yes, he did.
And what he got from what on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Thursday with Dr. Greg Carr, Reese, and Faraji, what Dr. Greg Carr, what Reese said was that white supremacy is not just white people. There are other groups: Black people, Asian, Mexican, Guatemalan, Cuban, whatever. You're talking about white supremacy again. We are so, to Dr. Greg Carr's point, we are so not trying to be at the bottom so much that we can't look at the entire picture and see how white supremacy is playing us like a puppet to feed the people who are white at the top that could care less about anything that we're going through. The world and again, the planet is not going to die. We are going to make the planet uninhabitable for us. But again, the wealthy and the people at the top, this 1% around the world, they are going to do everything in their power to survive, and they will watch us all die tomorrow or today. And they will all have a bunker, or they all have something to get them to the space station with no problem. So when you're saying that, I hear you. But at the end of the day, that requires us to say, okay, if you make this sacrifice and take away this aspect of what you do to get whatever it is that you're getting, we have to have an alternative. And most people, because of that self-taught hatred, no matter if it's Black, brown, Asian, whatever, they're going to be like, I'm not going over there because it's an inconvenience. It's back to technology, back to tie it all into this AI technology conversation. Inconvenience is the crippling thing for people of color. That's what technology has done to us. It's made it so convenient that we will not we will not do just a step further. That's why Apple is so big. That's why people won't change they won't change their bank. That's why people won't change their cell phone services, because the inconvenience to do it, literally you could be on the phone for 3, 4, 5 hours just to make these changes, or 1 or 2 days to do that. That is an inconvenience. And that is the crippling thing that technology has done to us as people of color, is the convenience.
Facts. Yeah, you hit everything on all cylinders. And I think that was pretty much the end of it. We got to wrap it up. Everybody that's been watching, that's in the chat room, etc., we appreciate y'all for coming through and showing love as you always do. Make sure that everybody that hasn't watched, you like, you share, subscribe, and people in the chat room, make sure y'all share. And I already know you subscribe if you're watching, but this has been an interesting conversation. And for sure, I'm taking over next month.
Yeah.
We're gonna start off with Wicked City. Let's go. And we're gonna talk about that next Friday. And to answer that question of, can humans have a relationship with AI, a romantic relationship, I will discuss that next month. That's why I said I did not want to talk about it, because we're gonna get into that as well. But again, thank everybody for stopping by, and we appreciate all you guys. And we'll see you again on next Black Nerd Fridays.
Black
Cheers,
Nerd
everybody.
Fridays, baby. We get it in. Let's go. End it up, man. Who ended it? Me?